Whoa.
Watch it, small town.
Sorry, Miss Keane. See, you've got an interest in a super person.
Yeah, right, small town. It makes for good headlines. Not that you'd know about that. Why is it that when the news breaks, you're never around? Where were you yesterday when Superperson saved that group of people from the exploding soup?
I, had diarrhea.
Too much information, Mom.
Never mind.
I'm gonna go this way now.
Someone help me!
I gotta go.
Welcome back, lovely people of Brisbane, to another Saturday at Showreel. We've got an exciting show planned for you today. First up, we're talking to the king of green screens and pro wrestler, Mr. Flash.
Then we'll be talking about the many physical transformations that actors have been through to commit to their characters, from extreme weight loss or gain to synthetic body parts.
And finally, we have a treat for you from our team here at Showreel, a special segment on the basics of how to green screen. We'll show you what's what and what's not in the virtual world of green.
Thank you for joining us today, Flash.
Oh, thank you for having me. This is lovely.
Is it?
I love the set. It's awesome.
Yeah,
It's
well, you know, you've had a very interesting career
yeah, so far. Yeah.
so
pretty good.
far.
Yeah. I enjoy it.
I know you through the Late Night Show.
Yes, that's true.
But I also found out that you're a professional wrestler.
Yeah, that's true. I'm the biggest one in the world. Not really, that's a lie. I professional wrestle for about 6 years.
6 years.
Yeah.
How did you get into that?
I think I've always just enjoyed it. When I was a kid growing up, I just liked the idea of grown men beating each other up. No, not really. I like the idea of having two really out there sort of characters telling a story, and it just so happened to be in a squared the squared circle, as they call it. But how I got started was a friend of mine in high school. We'd always just talk about it, like joke and how funny it would be, you know, if we ever got into it. And ironically, he did on the Gold Coast. And I went and watched him one show, and I really, really liked, you know, the whole setup. And I thought, oh, cool, if my friends did it, you know, this is a step in the right direction. So I approached the owner. I had one training session, and 6 years later, here I am, still going. So it's really awesome.
So you mentioned that these wrestlers have a story to tell. They're almost like, well, they're actors, basically. They perform. What kind of, you know, things do you have to always keep in mind when you go on that stage?
In terms of acting, or in terms of
acting, or like, you know, just basically exciting I assume that you'd have to do a lot of performance acts to get the crowd hyped up and excited. Is it?
Well, I mean, there's certain aspects to professional wrestling. It's not, I mean, it depends on how you look at it. America sort of, you know, sometimes they have a script and they, you know, they rehearse.
Oh, really?
Move for move. We learn how to do the moves and how to anticipate moves on you, but in terms of rehearsing and performing and pre-rehearsing, you know, a show, no, we never go out there into the ring before the crowd gets there and goes, let's all do this, and then come out to the show and go, oh, we haven't done this before. There's none of that that I've experienced myself. But in terms of pro wrestling, in terms of acting, you've always got to sort of realise that there's a deep level of psychology to what you're doing in wrestling. It's not just a case of I'm going to beat this guy up and, you know, let's go home. You sort of got to have the it factor. Like it's got to be a lot of charisma and a lot of personality.
And you've got to appeal to the crowds and stuff.
Yeah, that's it. But I mean, certain guys, you know, they'll go into the ring having just started, and it'll be really fresh for them, and they won't know, they won't anticipate, you know, the crowd as such. It'll sort of be just, oh, I'm in the ring, yay, this is fun, and the crowd just sort of sit there. But again, that comes with time, and I guess with all acting, you know, you get better over time, and you learn different things. So it's just a case of, you know, try it and keep going.
Yeah. And so do you have like stories set out for you by your team that you have to fulfill throughout time? Sometimes they'll, in terms of storylines, they might write one
And it might be, it depends on the length. If they really like, the character that you are and the way that you react with the crowd, they'll write one for a year and they'll go, this is the program, you're working with this guy for this amount of time and the payoff is this, and you go, oh, cool.
Yeah.
So it's sort of a bit of a guideline. It helps you get motivated in terms of training.
Do you have a go-to persona?
What's that?
A go-to persona that you like?
Oh, the character?
That you love, yeah.
Oh, well, the character that I do is called the Flashman. And I took a lot of inspiration from that from the DC comic of The Flash.
Yeah.
So my guy's like the ultimate superhero, being 4'8". It's just sort of like an ultimate underdog mentality. Like, I'll get into the ring and the crowd will be like, this guy's going to get killed. Yeah. And I'll run rings around a guy who's, 6'2" and end up beating him. And they'll go, yes, that was great,
Yeah. That's awesome.
But then I'll be myself clapping. No one actually clapped for me. I'll just sit there and go, that was great. And I'll just leave and never be seen again. But no, that's the persona that I do.
Awesome.
I'll have... Sometimes you'll be lucky and you'll get to do 2 characters depending on the size of the roster and what's available.
Okay.
So I've had the chance to do 2 characters in my career. One was the Flash and one was another one who was just a complete, utter, just mental case.
Right.
But it was more for the kids, just a sort of grumbly gremlin kind of guy.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's...
Cool. And then now you're on Late Night Show.
Yes.
How'd you get into that? Just quickly, give us a rundown of how you ended up on
this
channel.
Well, ironically, it actually comes from the wrestling. Scott, the 31 used to film the wrestling show that I was on.
Yeah.
And Scott was the commentator. And when I first started, before I started, actually, when I went and saw my friend wrestle, they had a show, and there was a segment that they required a dance-off, and they had these 2 sort of mental case characters come out and get all kids in the ring and have a dance-off, and they needed one more kid, and some little kid was going to do it, and his dad was like, no. And I thought, well, if there ever was a case to get into wrestling without getting into wrestling, this would be it. I've always wanted to be in the ring. Here we go. And I thought it was going to be one of those Hollywood moments where you stay on the chair, the little spotlight comes on and goes, you, and you're like, oh, and you're sent to the ring with Chariots of Fire playing, and you trip over and fall and smash your face. But that wasn't the case at all. I got on my chair and I remember I had a can of drink and I smashed it and threw it on the ground. Oh, this is it. Had my hand up, and they didn't see me, and I went, oh. Just had to awkwardly stand in my chair, and they're just like, oh, you, and got in the ring. And so I did a dance, and Scott was commentating, and he stood up and he goes, that was the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life. He put down the microphone and clapped.
That's awesome.
That's the beginning of the friendship, hey?
Yeah, so ever since then, I just talked to him pretty much every show and learnt from him, and he ended up doing the Late Night Show, and before I knew it, he wanted me to co-host with him. So
that's really awesome.
It is on a virtual set as well, and what's the difference between acting on like a set like this and then a set on a green screen?
With a set, there'll be times where the set will be obviously set up to do and interact with, the script will say, oh, we need to use this prop, or you need to walk out this side, and, you need to use these, you need to use your environment to act with. With a green screen, it's literally a case of, sometimes it's a case of like if there's an attack or a mutant background going on, you've sort of got a lot of improv. Yeah. But it depends really on the environment and what they've written for the green screen in order for you to sort of use it to your advantage.
That's cool. Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, the green screen for me, it's usually a lot of more improv, whereas a set, it's sort of this is what you're doing and these are what you're using.
Well, thank you for joining us today.
No worries.
So we have time for. We'll be back after the short break.
Welcome back to Showreel. Well, we've all heard of method acting and seen actors do anything for a role, including dramatic physical transformations.
From ridiculous weight loss to dramatic bulking up or wearing layers of latex, fake noses and wigs, actors can go through a lot for their careers. But is it just looking the part that wins them the Oscars, or is it their pure acting genius? So guys, what are some of your favourite acting transformations?
I'll let
Me?
Yep, I'll let you go first.
Well, the first one that comes to mind is Tom Cruise in Tropic Thunder.
Right.
If you've seen that film, I think that's the only movie actually him in, because he doesn't look anything like himself. Yeah. And he's bald and fat, and he's this I think just am I allowed to say douchey? He's just a douchey, like, white guy. And he, I think it's at the end of the movie, he, like, does this weird dance, and it actually makes the movie, I reckon.
Yeah.
And I think it works out well because it's a comedy. Like, physical transformations, I think.
He doesn't do many comedies either.
And he doesn't,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like that kind of gap is entertaining, and I really like it. In terms of drama, I like Charlize Theron in Monsters.
Yeah,
She
it's
won like
awesome.
Yeah.
an Oscar
Yeah.
for that, and she was like this ugly person. It's, you know, always nice to see someone so beautiful turn into something so ugly.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, because I'm a really nice person.
What about you, Flash?
I think in most recent times, just the difference between the two movies that Hugh Jackman has recently done, from Les Miserables, where he had to lose like a ton of weight to play,
yes.
you know, a
Jean
slave,
Valjean.
yeah, to then jumping and filming The Wolverine, and he had to put on all that weight again and all the muscle in like the space of like 4 to 6 months. I think that in itself, in terms of like body mass, is
Yeah.
like the biggest
And it must be
transformation.
so hard too. And like, I suppose we ask, is it worth it? Like, do strict diets and then the gym every day. You know, do you think it's really necessary, and is it worth it?
I think, from the actor's perspective, I think, you know, inhabiting that role through a physical transformation, if that helps the actor get into the right mindset, it's a very cool thing to do. It's also, in terms of the audience perspective, it's just fun to see sometimes.
Yeah.
Like when someone, for example, Rooney Mara, like she's usually just this innocent looking this actress,
Yeah.
this really beautiful, turn into something so kind of not goth, but just really threatening and
Yeah.
punky in The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, the American version. It's really interesting to see that kind of change, and though sometimes that transformation, I reckon, gets in the way of acting. What do you reckon?
Look, no, I don't really agree. I think that when you go through such a physical change as a person, it changes you spiritually, like, and emotionally as well. Like, it really helps to get into that persona as an actor.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of why they do it, you'd think they wouldn't be doing that role if they didn't enjoy it.
Exactly.
And I think the script that they've accepted to do, it just comes with the territory that, look, you're going to be required to be like this, and I think it's a personal thing in themselves to do that. Because if they weren't happy at the end of the day, if they weren't happy to do it, they wouldn't be doing it.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's literally just a personal choice as well.
Exactly. Biopics as well, like being someone, those are pretty, like, you know, it requires a lot of physical transformation. Obviously, Daniel Day-Lewis and Lincoln, like, he didn't look at all like Daniel Day-Lewis. He looked like Lincoln.
Yeah, right.
And Michelle Williams
In My Week with Marilyn, yeah, she did a great job of that. She had butt implants and everything.
Really?
So, yeah, it was great.
and like,
Breast implants, I'm not sure about that one, yeah. I don't know.
I don't know. You need to check up on that.
I think the new movie coming out about Alfred Hitchcock,
Yes.
just the prosthetics
so
that they used,
Yeah.
it was just ridiculous. You know,
It was cool.
For me, to see a photo of Hitchcock and the actor just side by
side.
Yeah, it was just ridiculous. It was like, I don't know which one is which.
Yeah.
And the only way you could tell, quite honestly, was that the photo of the actual Hitchcock was black and white. Like, that was, to me, that was the only sort of dramatic difference.
It's the movie magic thing, and it's definitely helps, you know, really get into and see the movie, especially if it's a biopic.
And do you think that these, like, transformations can only be pulled off by the really brilliant actors, or can anyone just do it?
I think there comes a certain level to the transformation. Like, if it's hair or, you know, makeup, it's not really a sort of a transformation. It's just sort of changing the look to suit the character. But I mean, you talk about acting and transformations in comedies. Look at Goldmember and Mike Myers. Sure, he's not, he's not going to win Oscars or anything like that. But in terms of comedy and the amount of transformations he did, the guy played 4 characters in one single movie. And spent 6 hours trying to get into like one character's suit to then go and shoot for how many hours? To then go home and do it again the next day. It's just like. You know.
Well, you just mentioned, you know, sitting through makeup and hair. That's a bit different from, for example, losing weight for like how Christian Bale lost weight for The Machinist. And that's the thing, because like I think it's last year's MTV Movie Awards. Like, Elizabeth Banks won Best On-Screen Transformation for The Hunger Games, and all she did really was sit through makeup and put on a ton of makeup and did like a lot of hair, and her wardrobe was crazy. And I don't know if that transformation really equates to one's acting abilities.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
Yes,
the point.
yeah.
Like, I reckon, like, some people go through a lot of training, like Hugh Jackman obviously puts a lot of work to it, but sometimes actresses just sit in a makeup trailer, wait for all it to be done.
And then everyone else's credit.
Yeah, is it really like them, or is it just the makeup? Or
And sorry, you go.
I mean, sure, it could probably boost the performance. Like as you were saying,
Yeah.
it helps to get into character.
Yeah.
But in terms of best transformation, I mean,
Yeah.
Because like the nominees were Michelle Williams, Rooney Mara, and
Yeah.
I was just like, really? Like all she did was sit there.
And sometimes when you have such elaborate costumes as well, it can hide mannerisms that actors already have, and then when you don't see them, you're like, oh, that was so good, because you know they're the completely different other person, but it's just because of all the latex on top of it that you don't see this weird eyebrow twitch that they have all the time, you know, so creates this illusion of it.
yeah, I mean,
craft.
but in terms of mannerisms and things like that, just in terms of transformations, I mean, Johnny Depp is a perfect example from how he was in Alice in Wonderland to how he is in Jack Sparrow in Pirates of the Caribbean. You know, he's sort of got that sway walk and savvy and, doing the hand, flicking and stuff like that. And in Alice in Wonderland, there's just none of that at all.
Yeah.
It's just sort of, holding his hat and kooky. And
He can pull it off. Like he's one of those actors. It's this thing to like, it's just become different characters through, for different movies, and it's really enjoyable as an audience to go into a movie and be like, oh, I wonder what Johnny Depp's going to be like.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But I mean, in terms of performance, I guess that kind of comes under acting range. I mean, Liam Neeson, he played a biopic where he did Schindler's List, and then you turn around and he's in Taken as a dad. Then you turn around again and he's Ra's al Ghul in the Dark Knight trilogy, and it's just like, again, it's the same guy. I've got a beard, and now I'm Schindler. Now I'm Ra's al Ghul.
That challenges actors as well, not doing much. Like, it's pretty cool. Anyway, so some of these transformations are really, really cool, and we will definitely have to keep the eye on them on upcoming films. After the break, we'll be talking about green screens, so stay tuned for more Showreel.
Welcome back. Many films and TV shows today use special effects and virtual sets. A well-known technique is the use of keying, also known as green screening, where the subject stands in front of a green-coloured screen, allowing them to be inserted into any desired setting. Green screening is used on many of 31 Digital shows, including The Late Night Show. So what are some films that use green screening well, guys?
Late Night Show. No. I'm not sure. Probably, I think in recent times, maybe Star Trek, the new ones, or both of them really.
Yeah.
They use a lot of green screens with their sets, being in the ship and whatnot, just the outside and space and all that.
Being that it's all sci-fi.
Yeah, exactly.
Sci-fi action, those use a lot of green screen, I guess.
Yeah.
Harry Potter.
Yes.
Fantasy.
For sure. Harry Potter for sure.
I know that the invisibility cloak thing.
Yeah.
Invisible cloak.
It's done really well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That has green screen.
Yep.
Avengers
Yeah.
used green screen with CGI.
I mean,
Did all the technical stuff.
even sort of local movies that were filmed here. The Matrix used a lot of green screen for what they were doing.
Yeah.
At the time, it was sort of revolutionary camera work with the bullet time. But in terms of what they were shooting, there were scenes where they'd have to use green screen. So it's just a matter of, trick photography, really. But yeah, The Matrix is one of them. Yeah, exactly.
Do you think the green screen allows films to be realistic, or no, or? Because like some directors I know, like the recent film Drive, which is like one of my favorite movies. Nicholas, what's his name? Nicholas Winding.
Your favourite movie.
Yeah.
I love this movie, that guy with the face.
Yeah, Ryan Gosling.
Yes.
I know that the director wanted not to use green screen at all because he wanted a grounded feel, and he prefers working at locations for the sake of actors getting the feel and just being able to touch the set. It definitely affects the acting and what comes out on film. And I reckon he didn't want to use any green screen, and so that was pretty cool. But sometimes I guess it depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for like a drama kind of thing or a
I mean, I guess it really depends on the genre of the film.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not going to do a, like you said, a gritty drama and then have half of it look unrealistic.
Yeah.
But it literally depends, on the genre. I mean, sci-fi, it's kind of a given. Maybe some horror. It depends on what scene they're shooting, or if there's a guy that's going to be CG'd or green screened in later.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, it literally comes back to the genre.
Also depends on the budgeting, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, and even some stunts, some stunt locations might be green screen to have explosions.
And in those like sci-fi and horror, you don't have to worry about whether it's realistic enough. You're kind of creating as you go.
Yeah, that's the whole genre really. It's sort of make believe, different scenarios. So, literally, comes down to whatever genre it can be.
Yeah, I know that Christopher Nolan prefers like realistic stuff. So even the Dark Knight trilogy and Inception, he tried to use like real life sets and stunts and stuff. Which is pretty cool. Like you'd think that it's CGI, but it's not, because like he wants it. I mean, I'm sure there's some CGI and stuff, but he wants it to be real as possible. So all the water scenes, like he literally had in Inception, he literally had like cannons and stuff like that, which allows the director to be as creative as possible. Anyway, so we'll leave you that with. Now we have a how-to on the green screening, and we hope you can find these tips as useful as possible. Make sure to use these green screen tips and post them up on Facebook. And when you're done, we'll check them out, and we love to see what you've created.
So I hope you enjoyed this episode, and thank you so much, Flash, for coming and joining us.
Thank you. It's fun to be here.
Thanks.
No worries.
Awesome.
We'll see you next week, and we'll be looking at the West End Film Festival. So until then, see you next Saturday at 2:30, and don't forget to find us on Facebook or YouTube.
This informative guide is brought to you by the 31 Digital Furniture Appeal, because all our desks are fake.
Hello, my name is George, and as you can see, special effects have made me look younger. Special effects are vital to modern movies. Without special effects, your movie just won't look awesome. Look at the moons. No, over there. Cut.
Special effects can be great visually, but it's no fun for actors when we have nothing to work with. This is the problem with the green screen. It's like trying to eat soup without a spoon. Remember, don't shout "look at the moons." Give us a spoon.
Green screen or blue screen, depending on the color, allows you to remove the color and replace it with anything. This is called chroma keying. But don't wear the same color as the screen. The quality of chroma keying depends on the lighting and the quality of the cameras, as well as the manual settings for the keying itself. Get the settings wrong, and it causes all kinds of hell. Cut.
Overusing special effects can result in a film that is tacky and relies entirely on its visuals rather than the characters or plot. However, it does have its place.
As I showed you before, green screen allows you to put the actors in all kinds of places that are impossible or too expensive to film in real life. It also allows you to display visuals in background, a trick often used in television. Of course, when you're using live chroma keying, it's imperative that you use the correct background, or things can get a little embarrassing.
And now it's over to Connor with the weather. How's the weather, Connor?
Great, thanks Connor. It's going to be mostly fine today with high humidity and temperatures in the high 30s, and it's going to get quite wet down south this evening with a light drizzle, but it should dry up by the morning. Back to you, Connor.
When you have multiple camera angles, make sure you have different virtual backgrounds behind them, or it can look a little silly.
So what are your views on special effects?
Awesome.
Really?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Most importantly, remember that the person in front of the green screen may not be able to see the virtual background while filming. While this can lead to embarrassing accidents such as our poor weather girls, when done deliberately, it allows you to make hilarious jokes without the person knowing.
Have you ever thought about starting a new film franchise?
No, I think I can retire now, knowing the franchise I've created will last for generations.
And are you sure you're not just trying to milk it for all it's worth?
No. Last but not least, remember, without special effects like these in my movies, using green screen can limit your shot selection. You need to make sure the backgrounds match your camera angles.
Well, thanks for joining us in the studio today, Jeff Goldblum.
No, I'm supposed to be George.
Well, that's all we have time for, I'm afraid. Tune in next time for...
And remember, as we say in the industry, don't be a George. I've been Obi-Wan Kenobi. May the Force be with you.